How to remember words. Leo remembered the day he first decided to learn English. It felt like an insurmountable mountain, a towering peak of unknown vocabulary and confusing grammar. He knew it was crucial for his career dreams, but where would he even begin? The sheer volume of words seemed overwhelming, a vast ocean of foreign sounds. His initial attempts were frustrating, filled with self-doubt and wanting to quit entirely. He needed a clear path forward. His first challenge was understanding how to remember words effectively. Rote memorization proved tedious and ineffective, with new vocabulary vanishing as quickly as it appeared. He tried writing endless lists, but they just piled up, daunting and uninviting. Leo realized a different approach was desperately needed. He researched various techniques, seeking a method that would truly stick, building a solid and lasting foundation. Then he discovered spaced repetition, a genuine revelation. He started using digital flashcards, reviewing words at optimal, increasing intervals. This made remembering words feel less like a chore and more like an exciting discovery. Each successful recall boosted his confidence significantly. This strategic way of learning English was finally making sense, allowing him to absorb vocabulary consistently and efficiently, transforming his entire approach. He also learned the importance of context. Simply memorizing definitions was insufficient. Leo began associating new words with vivid images, personal experiences, or sentences that resonated with him. This active engagement helped solidify the vocabulary, making it more retrievable during conversations. He understood that understanding words in their natural habitat was key to true comprehension, not just surface-level recall. Beyond individual words, the challenge was how to learn English holistically. It wasn't just about vocabulary, it was grammar, pronunciation, and cultural nuances. Leo felt the weight of this vast subject. He understood that a piecemeal approach wouldn't yield the fluency he craved. He needed a comprehensive strategy that integrated all components, moving him steadily toward his ambitious goal. His research led him to the concept of immersion, even if it was artificial immersion. He realized that living in an English-speaking country wasn't an option yet, but he could create an English environment around himself. This realization was a turning point, shifting his mindset from studying English to living English, a subtle but profound change in his overall learning philosophy. The next crucial step in his way of learning English was listening. He started small, listening to simple children's stories and songs. At first, it sounded like a jumble of indistinct noises. But he persisted, understanding that his ear needed training, just like a muscle. Patience became his constant companion in this phase, knowing consistency was key. He dedicated at least 30 minutes daily to listening activities. This wasn't passive listening, it was active engagement. He chose podcasts on topics he genuinely enjoyed, even if he didn't grasp every single word initially. The goal was to train his brain to recognize patterns, rhythm, and intonation, building a foundation for comprehension, a truly essential component. Movies and TV shows with English subtitles became his new obsession. At first, he relied heavily on the subtitles, but gradually, he started to understand more without needing to read every line. This listen and practice method, as he called it, was incredibly effective for developing his auditory comprehension skills, making the sounds of English feel more natural. He even began shadowing native speakers, repeating phrases and sentences exactly as he heard them. This practice improved his pronunciation and intonation immensely. It felt awkward at first, talking to himself, but the progress was undeniable. This active engagement with spoken English was a powerful way to internalize sounds, preparing him for actual conversations. But the biggest hurdle remained: how to take the first step for talking. The fear of making mistakes was paralyzing. He worried about sounding foolish or being misunderstood. Speaking felt like a performance, and he was terrified of failure. This mental block was more formidable than any grammar rule, preventing him from practicing his hard-earned knowledge. His breakthrough came when he joined an online language exchange community. He started with text chats, which felt safer. Gradually, he moved to short voice messages. This gradual progression eased him into spoken interaction, reducing the immense pressure he felt initially. He was taking small, deliberate steps toward overcoming his deep-seated hesitation. His first live conversation was terrifying. His heart pounded, and his voice trembled. He stammered, struggled for words, and felt a flush of embarrassment. Yet, his conversation partner was patient and encouraging. This initial, awkward experience, though difficult, was a crucial initiation into the world of actual English communication, a rite of passage. He learned that mistakes were not failures but opportunities for growth. Every mispronounced word, every grammatical error, became a learning point. This shift in perspective was vital for how to make confidence in speaking. He began to see errors as data, feedback for improvement, rather than sources of shame or discouragement. To build confidence, he set small, achievable speaking goals. Perhaps today, he would just introduce himself. Tomorrow, he would ask 3 questions. Starting step-by-step talking was less daunting than aiming for a flawless 20-minute monologue. Each tiny success reinforced his belief in his own capability. He found a patient tutor who understood his anxieties. The tutor created a safe space where Leo felt comfortable experimenting with language, making errors without judgment. This supportive environment was instrumental in transforming his apprehension into enthusiasm. Regular sessions provided structure and accountability, pushing him gently beyond his comfort zone. Role-playing common scenarios also helped immensely. Practicing ordering food, asking for directions, or making small talk in a simulated environment reduced the stress of real-life interactions. He rehearsed phrases, gaining fluency and automaticity. This practical application of his learned vocabulary was incredibly effective for building muscle memory in his speech. He started recording himself speaking, playing it back, and critically analyzing his own pronunciation and flow. It was uncomfortable at first, hearing his own voice, but it offered invaluable self-correction opportunities. This self-assessment became a powerful tool in his how-to-learn English journey, making him his own most effective coach. The concept of active recall extended beyond vocabulary to speaking. Instead of passively absorbing, he actively tried to produce language. If he learned a new phrase, he immediately tried to weave it into a sentence, even if just to himself. This proactive approach solidified new linguistic structures. He also realized the power of repeating phrases he heard from native speakers. This wasn't just imitation, it was about internalizing natural intonation and rhythm. The listen and practice mantra was constantly in his mind, guiding his every interaction. He found himself unconsciously adopting native-like speech patterns, a true sign of progress. Consistent exposure to authentic English materials was paramount. He subscribed to English newsletters, followed English-speaking YouTubers, and even tried to think in English during daily activities. This constant immersion, even in small doses, accelerated his progress remarkably, making the language feel more like a part of his life. The way of learning English became less about studying isolated rules and more about understanding how language functioned organically. He started noticing patterns in conversations, common expressions, and idiomatic phrases. This holistic understanding made the language feel less arbitrary and more intuitive, fostering a deeper connection. He understood that simply knowing how to remember words wasn't enough, he needed to recall them effortlessly under pressure. This required consistent, deliberate practice in real-time scenarios. The gap between passive knowledge and active application began to shrink with every challenging conversation. He pushed himself to retrieve words faster. His confidence grew not just from speaking, but from understanding that communication was the ultimate goal, not perfection. People appreciated his effort, even if his English wasn't flawless. This realization was a huge relief, freeing him from the paralyzing fear of error, allowing him to simply communicate. He started engaging in casual conversations, even with strangers, asking simple questions at a coffee shop or in a store. These low-stakes interactions provided valuable real-world practice. Each brief exchange chipped away at his shyness, making the idea of speaking English in public less terrifying and more routine. The journey of how to learn words evolved. He wasn't just using flashcards anymore, he was actively collecting new vocabulary from every conversation, every article, every video. His personal word bank grew organically, filled with words he actually encountered and used, making them truly his own. Reading became another cornerstone of his learning strategy. Why reading is important quickly became clear to him. It expanded his vocabulary, reinforced grammar structures, and exposed him to different writing styles and cultural contexts. Reading offered a quiet, pressure-free environment for deep learning. He began with graded readers, simplified books designed for English learners. These provided achievable challenges, building his confidence before tackling more complex texts. The joy of understanding an entire story in English was incredibly motivating, proving to him that his efforts were truly paying off. Soon, he moved to authentic materials, articles, blogs, and eventually, novels he genuinely wanted to read. He didn't understand every word, but he focused on general comprehension, using context clues to infer meaning. This active reading greatly improved his overall English proficiency. Reading exposed him to sophisticated sentence structures and nuanced expressions that he might not encounter in everyday conversation. It refined his understanding of grammar subtly, without the need for explicit rule memorization. This passive absorption through reading was surprisingly powerful for reinforcing learned concepts. He realized that the more he read, the better he became at understanding spoken English too. The written word strengthened his internal model of the language, making auditory input easier to process. Reading and listening created a virtuous cycle, each enhancing the other's effectiveness. For how to make confidence in speaking, he started preparing simple scripts for common situations. Not to memorize them word for word, but to have a mental framework. This preparation reduced anxiety and gave him a sense of control during unpredictable conversations, allowing him to feel more secure. He also joined an English-speaking club in his city, attending weekly meetings. Being surrounded by other learners with similar goals provided immense motivation and a supportive community. It was a safe space to practice, make friends, and realize that everyone made mistakes, normalizing the learning process. The shift from passively acquiring knowledge to actively producing it was pivotal. He understood that true fluency wasn't just about understanding, it was about expressing himself clearly and confidently. This active production became the focus of his advanced stages of learning. How to take first step for talking transformed from a terrifying leap into a series of manageable hops. Each small conversation, each successful interaction, built upon the last, gradually accumulating into significant progress. He celebrated these tiny victories, acknowledging his resilience. He stopped translating in his head. This was a massive breakthrough. Instead, he began to think directly in English, connecting concepts to English words rather than going through his native language. This internal shift significantly improved his fluency and response time in conversations. His way of learning English diversified. He incorporated language learning apps, watched educational YouTube channels, and even tried to follow English news. This multifaceted approach kept the learning process fresh and engaging, preventing burnout and ensuring continuous exposure across various mediums. He accepted that there would be plateaus, periods where progress seemed to slow down. During these times, he reminded himself of why reading is important and continued his consistent practice, trusting the process. Patience remained his greatest ally, a vital quality for sustained learning. The advice "start step by step talking" resonated deeply with him. He realized that grand, ambitious goals could be paralyzing. Breaking down the immense task of fluency into tiny, actionable steps made the journey feel achievable and less overwhelming. Every small step counted. He learned to embrace his accent, understanding that communication was paramount, not sounding exactly like a native speaker. His unique voice became part of his identity as an English speaker. This self-acceptance further fueled his confidence in speaking freely and authentically. The importance of regular review for how to remember words cannot be overstated. He revisited older vocabulary, ensuring it remained active in his memory. Spaced repetition tools continued to be his best friend, consolidating knowledge and preventing the dreaded forgetting curve. He started writing short paragraphs and journal entries in English. This practice helped him organize his thoughts directly in the language, improving his written expression and reinforcing grammar. Writing was a low-pressure way to experiment with new vocabulary and structures. The more he practiced listen and practice, the more natural English sounded. He could now differentiate subtle nuances in pronunciation and intonation. This refined listening ability significantly improved his comprehension of fast-paced native speech, bridging a critical gap. He understood that how to learn English was a lifelong journey, not a destination. There would always be new words, new expressions, and new contexts to explore. This perspective liberated him from the pressure of perfection, allowing him to enjoy the continuous process. His journey from beginner to confident speaker demonstrated the power of perseverance and strategic learning. Every keyword from his initial research, remembering words, listening, practicing, taking the first step, building confidence, reading, had played a vital role. He had transformed his approach from chaotic memorization to a structured, enjoyable way of learning English. He was no longer intimidated by the language, he embraced it as a tool for connecting with the world, a bridge to new opportunities and experiences. His story became an inspiration to others struggling with English. He shared his methods, emphasizing the importance of consistent effort and finding joy in the small victories. His journey was a testament to what dedication and a smart strategy could achieve. He frequently reminded new learners to focus on communication over grammar. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes," he would say, "because every mistake is a step forward." This encouraging mantra helped others overcome their initial fear, just as it had helped him. He found joy in discovering new words, not just through lists, but embedded within fascinating articles or compelling stories. This organic learning made the process of how to learn words feel less like studying and more like an exciting treasure hunt. His advice for how to take first step for talking was always practical: find a supportive partner, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Start with simple greetings. Don't aim for perfection, aim for connection. These small steps built momentum. He truly believed in start step-by-step talking. Each conversation, no matter how brief or imperfect, was a brick laid in the foundation of his fluency. The cumulative effect of these small efforts was astounding, leading to remarkable progress over time. He realized that why reading is important extended beyond vocabulary. It cultivated his understanding of English culture, humor, and diverse perspectives. Reading opened up new worlds, making the language not just a skill, but a gateway to knowledge. His path exemplified a successful way of learning English that combined active and passive methods. From intense listening and speaking practice to quiet moments of reading and vocabulary review, he built a well-rounded approach that truly worked. Leo, now a confident English speaker, often reflected on his initial struggles. He had proven to himself that learning a new language was entirely possible with the right mindset and consistent application of effective strategies, especially for remembering words. So, if you're wondering how to learn English, remember Leo's journey. Embrace the process, listen and practice, take that first brave step for talking, build confidence brick by brick, and discover why reading is important. Your fluency awaits, step by step.